Yeah. What is good, YouTube? It is your boy LSG Melly, and I'm bringing you guys. I replayed Super Mario Sunshine, and it's not what I remembered. This is by what's this guy's name? I want to show him some love. Every time I react to somebody, I always want to show them love. Straw Hat Midas, that's his name. All right. Um, Mario Sunshine is one of my favorite Mario games of all time. To my knowledge, this is the first Mario game that had cutscenes. It's not the first 3D platformer Mario. We got Mario 64 for that. But it's the first Mario game that actually had cutscenes in it. This game was very controversial. I had no idea that this game was controversial. I thought everybody loved it. Growing up, everybody talked about it, and I never heard any bad things about it until got a little older, started scouring the internet. A lot of people don't like this game. It's news to me. So when I seen this pop up on my For You, I had to react to it, you know? This is a classic to me. It's a banger. I'm very biased towards this game. It holds a very special place in my heart. And I'm kicking off my channel again after a 2-year hiatus. I have another video coming up a death battle between Cell and Metal Sonic. I reacted to that. Now we're reacting to this. Let's get into it, y'all. See you guys in the video.
Super Mario Sunshine is definitely the strangest of the traditional 3D Mario games. Some people love it for how different it dared to be, while others think it is the worst 3D Mario game by a landslide. So recently, I replayed it to see if Super Mario Sunshine is really that bad. Back in 1996, Nintendo revolutionized 3D platforming with the release of the Nintendo 64, and more importantly, Super Mario 64. At the time, this game was like witchcraft. Whether you were hopping into a world through a painting or stomping out a turtle in 360 degrees, there was almost no way this game could get any better. Imagine a Mario game where you don't need to use this. Wow, take my life savings! That is $3.
Yo, the Nintendo 64 controller is arguably one of the worst controllers ever. I don't know how I was able to do it as a kid. That controller sucks. Then they had the nerve to try to like make a wireless version for the Switch. I wasn't paying for that shit. Hell nah.
This is just depressing. Super Mario 64 blew people's minds. We were used to Mario games that looked like this, and though they were still good, now that I've seen the thickness firsthand, how could we possibly go back? It took what worked about the traditional 2D Mario games and just brought it into 3D, keeping the focus on the platforming without needing any special gimmicks to bring it together. And naturally, with any game that reaches this level of success, it was going to get a sequel. But they were left with a bit of a problem. How could you possibly create a sequel to a game that was this impactful? By filling it with vibes. Nintendo knew that this game needed a sequel, and originally they planned to make it for the Nintendo 64 disk drive. Also known as Nintendo's fourth biggest mistake ever, I like what they were going for with the disk drive. It was a good idea. However, everything that could have possibly went wrong with it did. Like most of the games that were planned for it, the ideas for Super Mario 64 2 got scrapped, and the idea of a new 3D Mario remained in limbo until a few years later. The world changed in 2001. We got the GameCube. Look at it, it's a cube. This console was a bit of an oddity. While the other consoles at the time were utilizing full-size CDs that could handle a lot of storage, Nintendo chose to use these Diet CDs. Listen, they are iconic, but they could only hold about a third the amount of data that a PS2 or Xbox disc could, which meant a lot of games had to get really creative with how they used their storage space. The year before the GameCube released at Space World 2000, we saw the tech demo for Super Mario 128. This idea was a goldmine. Take the 64, double it, make that many Marios, and
oh, look at that. What was that?
Creative with how they use their storage space. The year before the GameCube released at Space World 2000, we saw the tech demo for Super Mario 128. This idea was a
ew. Why is he so slender and why is he tall? Like, bro, even in the old Mario games, whenever he got a power-up, he was still chunky. Why he's so skinny? This looks like something from a fever dream. Get this shit off my screen, bro.
gold mine, take the 64, double it, make that many Marios, and the press would go feral. After seeing this, people naturally speculated that the new 3D Mario game would have something to do with it, and they were wrong. Nintendo just used this as a way to hype up their next generation console. Though a few years later, some of this technology would go on to inspire games like Super Mario Galaxy, Twilight Princess, and of course, Pikmin. So even though people began to speculate wildly, the real sequel to Super Mario 64 would be a bit different. Some of the earliest ideas for this game's premise revolved around the idea of giving Mario a water gun. I don't know how they got here, but they did. They really wanted this game to stand out, so they went more of a realistic, adjacent direction during development. If this doesn't scream realism, I have no idea what could. The goal was to put Mario into a new situation to make this really stand out from the last entry. And because they had already landed on the idea of giving Mario a squirt gun, they had to put Mario in a location where that made sense, which led to the creation of Isle Delfino. The goal became to put Mario in an environment that felt like a vacation. Though it definitely took a little while to get there, some early footage showed Isle Delfino having real human beings instead of the Pianta the game would end up with. Mario would never include a normally proportioned human being, right? I don't like this. In fact, almost every time this game was shown before release, even up to E3 2002, it always looked substantially different than what ended up getting released. Whether it was changes to the locations we ended up with, or new areas altogether, it seemed like every time Nintendo got ready to show the game off, they had to redo everything. But eventually, the game was released in the summer of 2002, which I always thought was a good idea. The game was designed around the idea of a summer vacation, so giving it to people in the summer just made sense. The cover art here has always been really cool, but also a bit strange. You have the normal stuff on the front like Mario with FLUDD and the logo with the Shine Sprite, but then when you start zooming in a bit, there's text on it.
Is someone trying to send me a message?
I didn't even realize there was text on this for years, and when I did, I was just more confused. Half of the text is covered up, so it looks like psychotic ramblings. I do like the more minimalist look they went for the rest of the case with the white stripe background that really makes the rest of the cover art pop. The backside shows off some of the game's locations and gives a little bit of detail about the story, but one of my favorite things came in the manual. Because for some reason, the manual has a notes section in the back. Who was this for? Even as a kid.
Yo, I miss when games had booklets. You buy a game now, no booklet. It comes with a fucking thin sheet of paper that says bullshit. It has probably a code on it or whatever. I miss when games had booklets and they said notes. He said, "What is this for?" I don't know how old this person is, but the notes in the back were very meaningful, especially when we play games that we use cheat codes. We will write our cheat codes. We will also write where we left off in the game or something like that, because sometimes we lost our memory cards. We will write where we left off, yada yada yada. You could write a bunch of different things. I never really utilized the notes section other than to use cheat codes, but the notes section was phenomenal. Booklets were phenomenal. But I get it now. We live in a digital marketplace era where you just buy it online. So there's no need for them to go extra hard, wasting trees for booklets. I get it. But dog, this booklets, man. Woo-wee! Early 2000 shit.
I didn't want to write in this because I knew I was going to keep it forever, and if I was going to write something for a video game, why would I do it on such a small piece of paper? Something I've never really understood about Super Mario Sunshine is that this game has only been officially sold in two ways. The first being its original release on the GameCube, and the second being the Super Mario 3D All-Star Collection. Again, the GameCube has always been Nintendo's odd one out. Historically, the Virtual Console made a ton of games available, but for some reason, they always skipped the GameCube. On the Wii, you were able to buy up until the Nintendo 64, and on the Wii U, they included everything except for the GameCube. Now, this is eventually confirmed to come to Nintendo Switch Online plus the expansion pass, but as of right now, these are the only ways to get it. For the video, I played on the 3D All-Star Collection. They're not different,
And mind you, both of those copies, Both of those copies he just showed, you try. First of all, the 3D All Stars is discontinued. You can't buy that from stores anymore. You can only buy that from eBay or eBay, or if Walmart does sell it, they're selling it at a way higher price. When this dropped, I think this was, if I'm not mistaken, it was between 40 and 50 bucks, probably between somewhere between 30 and 50 bucks. Now, if you try to go buy the 3D All Stars, that shit is probably like 100 bucks plus. That's crazy, bro. And the regular Mario Sunshine disc, new and stuff like that, probably running you like $80, maybe. I don't know, dog. Gaming, it's a lot of money to be made in gaming, yo. That's why I believe that we should keep our disc. Buy a disc. If you got a console and it's digital, of course, buy the digital version, but also buy a disc version because you never know how much it might rise in price later down the line. Especially if you send it to the companies where they grade it and you get that official stamp. Oh, dude, gold mine. All right, let me stop. Enough pausing.
Wanted to point that out for legal reasons. Unlike Super Mario 64 that starts off by flashbanging you with Mario, this game starts directly with a cutscene. There is a plane flying overhead, and inside is Mario, Peach, and Toadsworth, because at this point they didn't forget he exists. The last time he was an official part of a new game was Mario and Luigi Dream Team in 2013. I miss him. Once he finally grabs his seat, you're treated to an in-flight movie showing off the Isle Delfino.
Welcome to the sun-drenched tropical paradise of Isle Delfino.
Oh my god, it can talk?
Yeah, something unique about Super Mario Sunshine is that all of the cutscenes have voice acting. Now, this does lead to some very interesting deliveries, but in all honesty, this is one of my favorite parts of this game. I wish that the other 3D Mario games went this far and added cutscenes with voice acting, because no matter how many times I go back to revisit this, I always want to watch what happens. Eventually, you get to the Isle Delfino and you immediately crash land. Thankfully, nobody gets hurt, except for maybe Toadsworth, because I can't really tell from this angle. But once you get outside, you realize the airstrip is full of this icky paint-like goop. While Mario and Toadsworth are having a conversation about what to do, Princess Peach notices a mysterious figure off in the distance. And instead of doing something about it and telling someone, she just kind of ignores it. Mario, being the good guy he is, goes to look for a way to clean this up, and along the way finds this thing. This is the Flash Liquidizer Ultra Dousing Device, also.
She didn't really ignore it. She tried to tell them, but they just weren't listening. They was too busy indulging in whatever they were talking about, different things they were probably going to do on the island, or whatever the case may be. She did try. She tried. She ain't try hard enough, though. I'm not going to cut her that much slack, but she did try.
Also known as FLUDD. And after a brief introduction of what it can do, Mario goes back to clean up the mess when all of a sudden it turns into a giant toxic piranha plant. Okay, so you spray it down to the point where eventually it goes away. Once it's defeated, it releases your first Shine Sprite, which you collect, and after a bit of celebrating, you're then approached by the police.
I can't believe they're gonna thank me for my work.
Nah, you got booked, my boy. That's tough.
The idea of this has always been so funny to me. During this era, Nintendo was a lot more flexible, making some morally ambiguous characters. So without doing any real research, Mario is arrested and tried for graffitiing the entire island. And I would just like to remind everybody that he arrived on an international flight not 5 minutes ago. But this ended up giving me some of my favorite scenes from any Mario game ever. Whether it's Mario being in court, the judge completely ignoring the defense's plea, or the fact that Mario is literally in a jail cell, I may be biased, but I think the beginning of this game's story is nearly perfect. Once you're released from your cell, you can finally go clean up the land. But during the process of cleaning, you're finally introduced to the real villain, Shadow Mario. Armed with a paintbrush and an attitude, he quickly tries to kidnap Princess Peach, so you chase him down and cause him to fail. But instead of giving up and turning himself in, he quickly just escapes into one of the worlds, so you go after him. Just like in Super Mario 64, when you go into a world, you're brought to a level select screen. And just like last time, you select the level you want to complete, and then you go complete it. But when it comes to the levels themselves, there are a few changes that make this feel really different from its predecessor. For example, most of the time, the only shine you'll be able to find on a stage is the one you selected. Instead of the worlds being an open sandbox for you to play around in, this time they went for a more episodic structure. That changes the level pretty significantly between each visit. Now, I personally see this as both a good thing and a bad thing. This did take away some of the freedom and exploration that 64 offered, which me and a lot of people really love. Part of that game's magic came from accidentally coming across a power star that you didn't expect. And since that's not really an option anymore, now whenever I get a star, it feels a bit more predictable. But on a positive side, this allowed the different locations to tell a story of their own. Having the shines unlocked in a much
So a little hot take. Sorry, little hot take. I'm not that big of a fan of sandbox games because when you're allowed too much freedom, I'm not. I haven't been tested for ADHD. I don't think I have it. But when I play sandbox games, I get so into like doing everything else besides the main mission. I end up spending an hour plus on a mission doing the side stuff, which is why games like Hitman, I love Hitman, and I never actually beat a Hitman, but I played a little bit, beat a couple missions. But Hitman is the type of game, me as a content creator, I can't play that for full videos because I get too sucked into the game, like into everything else besides the main mission. So I do like the fact that they kept you on track in this game. Probably a little biased, probably a little hot take, whatever. But I like the fact that they keep you tracked, you know? That's kind of what the old games did, you know? 2D ones. Oh shit.
much more structured way allowed them to change the worlds from level to level a lot more dramatically than they could before. So instead of saying if it's better or worse, I'm just gonna label it as different. Another big change came to the collectibles themselves, as this is not a power star as far as I know. I'm not an astrologist, but these look a little bit different. The shines are the source of the island's light, and just like in Mario 64, there are 120 total. A little detail that I really like about them is that for the first half of the game, the more you collect, the brighter that Delfino Plaza gets. By cleaning up the island, you are literally bringing the joy back to these people. And though I never really noticed as a kid, I had to Google it as an adult because I thought I was going crazy while playing this game.
No, I swear it's getting brighter.
Are you sure you haven't stopped taking your meds again?
No, I'm not crazy!
Now, outside of the amount of vitamin D that Mario is getting, another big change that came with the shines is how they were tied to progression. In Super Mario 64, you were collecting power stars to unlock doors. Whether it was the early game levels or the late game boss doors, you always knew exactly how many stars you needed to save up. And though now you still needed to collect a certain amount of shines to beat the game, now they opted to have a more structured and story-driven progression where for the most part, all new areas were discovered through major events in the game. If you want to beat the game, you have to capture Shadow Mario on all 7 of the major new locations. And in order to do that, you have to beat the first 7 levels in all of the major locations. Just like last time, if you're somebody who wants to collect every single shine in the game, 120 is the magic number. However, in this game, there is more variety in how you'll get them. Super Mario 64 had 15 standard courses, each containing a variety of tasks that added up to 7 stars per level, with the other 15 stars being made up of various hidden secrets around Peach's castle to bring that total to 120 stars. It was simple and it worked, so naturally with Sunshine, they had to change everything to give me chest pain. Sunshine has a total of 7 courses, each containing 11 shines. Now this is half the amount of courses that were in Super Mario 64, something I'll touch more on later, and even though each stage has more episodes per world than the last game did, they still only add up to 77 shines collected this way. Delfino Plaza has another 16 shines scattered throughout it, most of which being little activities or challenges that take place around the town. Some of these are pretty obvious, but others are really well hidden. And though it doesn't feel as mysterious as Peach's castle did, I still really liked hunting down the ones that were in town. There's also 2 shines on the airstrip where Mario and friends made an emergency landing. And of course, you get one final shine for beating the game. I'll say that getting a majority of these shines is pretty fun. But there was also a couple of shines that made me want to eat the cotton candy out of my walls. I'm somebody who likes to get the most out of the games I play, so if there are 120 shines, I'm going to do my best to get them all. But I would rather bare knuckle box a polar bear than ever attempt the pachinko level or the lily pad ride again. People have made fun of the pachinko level for years, and for good reason. There is not a single feature of this challenge that makes sense. Whether it's launching off the trampoline or just attempting to move through the air at all, there is a staggering lack of control throughout this entire level, so much so that most people end up skipping it. But getting most of the shines is pretty fun, even if structurally a lot of them are a little bit bland. But if you want to get all 120 shines, there is one last activity that may drive you a bit insane, and that is collecting all 240 blue
I
coins.
hated
I
this.
just want to know whose idea this was. I just want to talk.
The remaining 24 shines are locked behind hunting down every single blue coin in the game. For every 10 blue coins you collect, you can turn them in for 1 shine. At first, I didn't really think these were that bad. It was a good idea to have a secondary collectible to go after that wasn't just the shines. Whether it's in a stage or in Delfino Plaza, they are hidden around every single corner, which is great. Until it's not. The only use of these coins is to save up and get another shine. So if you want to get all 120 shines, you have to find every single one. And though that may sound simple, let me tell ya, it's not. I would say about 80% of these are pretty easy to track down. Unlike the shines themselves, you can grab multiple in a single level, in a very similar way to how you would collect a Power Moon in Super Mario Odyssey. And this makes it feel like way less of a chore than say the green stars were in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Just by generally looking around, you can find a handful on your first visit to a location. But they forgot to add the single most important feature when it comes to any collectathon, being literally any way to track what you have already found. There are some blue coin that only appear in very specific episodes for no good reason, which means if you want to track them all down, you either have to be hyper diligent every time you go into a world, or you have to go back to worlds multiple extra times just to check for specific blue coins that may or may not be there. There are some specific instances where it makes sense for blue coins to be level specific. It makes sense if the level brings you to a new location for that stage. But there are other blue coins that they lock behind a level for no good reason, and I genuinely don't understand how anybody could find all 240 of these without using an external guide. And collecting all of these coins makes up for 20% of the total amount of shines that are available in the game.
It makes it so annoying to get everything out of this game, but I do it anyway because of the vibes.
Although some of the collectathon bits were definitely a bit of a downgrade, a big reason that I and a bunch of others still love Super Mario Sunshine is the atmosphere. I am not ashamed to say that Delfino Plaza is the best hub world in Mario's history. The whole area is so cool. When you first touch down on the airstrip, the tropical theme is very apparent. Back in the early 2000s, particularly the jump from the 5th generation of consoles to the 6th, there was a massive leap in power, so naturally to show it off, developers wanted to make something they couldn't really do before, and make water that looked good. Now that it was easier to use shading and ripple physics, you could make water that looked and behaved like an actual liquid. So during the early days of this generation,
Not gonna lie, Mario Sunshine to this day still has some of the best water physics in gaming. And I say that confidently, bro. Confidently.
games like this, Sonic Adventure, Wind Waker, and Kingdom Hearts tended to go for a tropical location because for the first time ever, it looked good. Now, Sunshine had the idea of giving Mario a water gun before they hammered down on what Isle Delfino would be, but one of the other big focuses during development was giving Mario the ability to jump from rooftop to rooftop.
There's a plump Italian man on the roof again.
The Isle Delfino and Delfino Plaza were designed to be the exact opposite of what Peach's Castle was in Super Mario 64. People were used to the deserts, ice worlds, and plains that a lot of the 2D Mario games would bring you through. So with the Isle Delfino, they went above and beyond, making this world feel not only alive, but also connected. Depending on what stage you're on, you'll be able to see the other locations you'll explore in the background. Each of these different places feel like it was made for a different type of tourist. In just Delfino Plaza, there are shops selling local fruit, beaches that you can bask on, and boats ferrying people around to small islands. And of course, there's also the realistic looking architecture instead of blocks that are just somehow suspended in the air. Also, another thing that makes the Isle Delfino so great is that you can talk to the people that live there. It's not just a bunch of generic Toad, there are the Pianta and the Noki people who are there just living their lives. To be fair, they're not great people, they did try you for a crime you did not commit, But more than any other 3D Mario game, the people who live there are a huge part of the experience. Though there's only 7 of them, the worlds you explore are also much more focused on this island theme as well. Unlike the last game where you jump through a painting and get brought to any type of world you could possibly imagine, all of the different levels here are just a different tourist location that exist on the island. Peanut Park is an amusement park full of rides and activities. Serena Beach is home to a fancy hotel and resort that almost feels like a romantic getaway. And the Rico Harbor is a port that may or may not be a front for organized crime. Although it was disappointing there were only half the amount of stages there were last time, I didn't care as much as I thought I would because all of these locations came together to make this world feel more alive, which is by far this game's biggest strength. Now, since you are legally required to, a majority of the tasks you'll complete in the game revolve around cleaning up the island in some way, shape, or form. In a lot of ways, Mario himself feels a lot better to control now that I'm not using this contraption. Outside of the GameCube controller being one of the greatest controllers ever made, they also tightened up Mario's controls a lot in this entry. In doing this, they did remove a few options from Mario's kit. Like, for some reason, they took away Mario's ability to crouch.
They took my knees!
I understand they had to rework a lot of things to make this game work at all, but taking this man's ability to crouch is insane. They also removed a lot of the momentum mechanics that were introduced in the first game. I could somewhat forgive taking Mario's kneecaps, but this change always confused me. One of the best parts about Super Mario 64 was that Mario's speed changed depending on what slope he was on. If you went downhill, you would go a little bit faster, and it just made sense. But now it doesn't really matter what direction you're going, whether it's uphill or downhill, Mario will go about the same speed, which makes controlling Mario feel a bit more consistent, but still a little weird. There was something so satisfying about chaining the different movement options together in Super Mario 64 that you can't really replicate here. He still feels good to control, for the most part, but that's mostly because he has the benefit of added technology. Though FLUDD is a strangely sentient water jetpack thing, it does feel like a natural extension of Mario's movement options, and I really like it. A common complaint here is that FLUDD took away the focus on the pure platforming that was so prevalent in Super Mario 64. And to be fair, it absolutely did. But I don't really think that's a bad thing. With the way these worlds are set up, FLUDD was a focal point for exploration. He allows Mario to hover in the air or get a huge burst of height, which helps with a new sense of verticality that a lot of these stages have. Some people act like the ability to hover with FLUDD ruins the platforming challenge this game was going for, when in reality, it's just a different kind of challenge. You still have to time your jumps and account for the distance that you're going.
I don't understand how people could say that the FLUDD made the platforming harder when there are literal missions in this game where you lose FLUDD. You go to certain stages, Shadow Mario takes away your FLUDD. There are some missions where you start the mission with no FLUDD whatsoever. You know? And then I don't get it. Like, what were you really complaining about? Like, I get it. It's not Mario 64. But I just feel like a lot of complaints from this game came from people, like, not accepting the game for what it is and doing too much comparisons. This game is great. This game is hard, too. Arguably one of the hardest Mario games after you do the first 2 locations, I believe. Once you get to the hotel, this game becomes hard. Once you get to that island where you gotta, like, get the chain chomp and the water, and then you're fighting the boos, this game becomes hard. Why are you acting like this game is easy? This game is not easy.
Making sure you have not only enough airtime, but also enough water to get from point A to point B. It's not like you can...
That's another thing too. His water tank runs out of water. And let me move myself real quick. Let me move myself. Look, y'all. He has a water tank literally right here. Right here. It runs out. How is this game easy? This game is not easy, bro. You got to keep track of that. Because his FLUDD is a big part of this game. You run out of water, you could be up high, you got to fall down and do everything all over again. What are y'all talking about?
just hover forever, making platforming a null factor. Also, FLUDD isn't just used for platforming either. A huge portion of the puzzles throughout your adventure have you using your spray nozzle to either clean or move things around. This adds a ton of variety, and though it's a bit divisive, I personally really like it. The best example of this is by far the most iconic, where Mario has to face off against one of the best villains in the franchise, Petey Piranha.
Name one character in all of fiction better than him. I'll wait.
This is a very early shine in the game where you have to go all the way through Bianco Hills to the top of a windmill that he has taken over. I've never really understood why he's on the windmill. My only thought is that he's closer to the sun, so it's good for photosynthesis.
Science!
Getting here is the perfect early test for your skills with FLUDD. And once you finally get to the top, the two of you are too thick and you both crash through the roof. You're probably gonna get another charge for property damage. This battle has you dodging his vomit and spraying water in his mouth to ground pound his stomach. Outside of the puking and inflation, this battle's a lot of fun. You have to swap between running around and dodging and using FLUDD offensively to spray him in the mouth, which perfectly blends together the new movement options that FLUDD allowed for. Overall, it was very different, but I think it was a great power-up. Having three very different attachments being the hover, the rocket, and the turbo, there was enough flexibility to make a great variety of challenge. Though most of the time you had to use a specific nozzle for each challenge, some of the best levels in the game are the ones that have you picking what nozzle you want to use, because you can only have one at a time. Having to make that selection instead of having all of the options available at once made FLUDD feel like a great balanced addition even though it was vastly different, which is one of the many reasons that Sunshine feels so distinct. Another power-up, if you can call it that, is Yoshi. Now, he didn't get the same amount of love that he did in Super Mario Galaxy 2, where he was cool enough to make it on the front cover. This time, he was just given a small section on the back. I am a big Yoshi fan, but he is a bit of an oddball in this game. He is fun to use, but he's also really situational. Every time you use him, the level is designed around him, which is really cool. However, this only happens about 3 times total. I can see why he's on the back of the case. Don't get me wrong, it was great that he was here, but he never felt important enough to matter. He's only accessible after one of the times you take down Shadow Mario, and after that you can use him, and he does have some cool abilities, like Vomit.
Why does everything vomit in this game?
For a game with a massive focus on water, I feel like it was a weird choice to make Yoshi dissolvable. If you touch water or let him get too hungry, he'll just evaporate, which I understand is one of the life cycles of water, but why does it look so painful? Though the power-ups were great, one of this game's greatest accidents came with the levels that didn't have power-ups at all. Throughout each of the courses, there are some secret levels that once entered, Mario falls through purgatory and gets robbed of FLUDD. I don't really know why this happens, but it's fine, I guess. These stages handicap you to only give you the options that Mario has himself. Now again, unlike Super Mario 64, this is a bit more restricted because Mario doesn't have knees. And these challenges range from a ton of fun to my 13th reason. These stages clearly inspired what Super Mario Galaxy would end up being, but this is like Super Mario Galaxy without the gravity mechanics. It is terrifying and dangerous. Not only are these levels visually very different than the rest of the game, they also require you to take on a much more focused platforming adventure that you can't really do otherwise. You can't hover jet to buy yourself time. You either make the jump or die trying. It is a complete 180 from the other parts of the game, which is a big reason why I like it. Granted, these do have by far the biggest spikes in difficulty that you will experience playing this game. If you can get over the overwhelming rage these make you feel, they can be a good amount of fun. Throughout all of the stages in Sunshine, you're going to see a lot of interesting characters. Like I mentioned before, the main inhabitants of the island are the Pianta and Noki, which are scattered throughout almost every major location. But Sunshine also has a lot of other enemies that you don't really see in other Mario games. There are the Stroll and Stew, which are like Goombas, but way cooler. The Cataquacks, which both terrify me here and in Mario Kart Double Dash. But even the returning enemies like Boo have a much different expression than normal. This game is weird, man. A big part of the variety that I really like came with the boss battles, which unlike Super Mario 64, were a lot more compelling. Whether it was the King Babam, the Womp King, or the King of Koopas, in Super Mario 64, I feel like Mario was more so fighting the idea of a monarchy. There were just a bunch of big enemies that you had to throw or ground pound. which were still fun, but were definitely a bit lacking. But now there was more variety than ever. The giant blooper in Rico Harbor has you literally rip its arms off during battle, which is just as violent and gross as it sounds. Look at them flail, I feel like a monster. Though it makes me want to vomit, the Mecha Bowser boss fight has you ride a roller coaster shooting rockets at a giant robot. And then there's the boss fight with King Boo, which for reasons I still can't explain, looks like this. You have to throw spicy peppers at him from a giant roulette table, and though I still don't understand how he went from looking like this in Luigi's Mansion to what he looks like now, it was still a really interesting boss fight, even though getting here was a bit of a nightmare. There was a lot of variety, and though sometimes it wasn't perfect, the boss battles were certainly a step in the right direction for what they would become down the line. Super Mario Sunshine was definitely a bit different than people were expecting. It was a very different take on the Mario universe than we had seen before. And though I personally enjoy it, after replaying it, I can see a lot of the reasons why people say that this is a bit of a downgrade compared to its predecessor. Even in the earliest parts of the game, there are some decisions that I found really strange. As soon as you find FLUDD, you are immediately thrown into the action fighting a giant orange proto-piranha. I really enjoyed this fight, and it was a good way to show off the basics of what FLUDD can do. Then after the whole litigation, you're thrust into Delfino Plaza, where you have to battle another one, except this time it's brown. I thought it was a bit weird to have to repeat the same mini-boss again so soon, but I could give it a pass. But then you have to go to Bianco Hills for the first level, and guess who's back?
This has gotta be a prank.
Why do I have to fight the same boss 3 times in the first 30 minutes of the game? I like how they're throwing you directly into the action like they did with King Babam in 64, but I didn't have to fight him 3 separate times because that would be stupid. Now, if this was the only time where things got repetitive, then I could give it a pass because maybe they just got one thing wrong. But they got more than one thing wrong. A lot of the episodes feel like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. Fighting Petey Piranha as the first boss, then fighting him again in a slightly different location a few levels later was a bit strange. I get that the battles themselves have you doing something different, but at least put this in a different course to make it feel distinct. Also, out of the 11 different possible shines in Bianco Hills, 4 of them are red coin hunts. I understand having 1, maybe 2 red coin hunts in a stage, but 4 is insane. But unlike in Super Mario 64, where you could just skip out on stars you didn't want to do, if you want to beat the game, you have to beat the first 7 worlds in each of the courses in order. You can go from one course to another, but all 7 of the first stages have to be completed if you want to get to the end game. Now, like I said before, I'm somebody who's going to try and do everything in the game, but most people are not like that. In Super Mario 64, if there was a star you didn't want to complete, you didn't have to. You could skip it and go on to the next world, and as long as you hit that star count, you could still beat the game. But here, you just have to suffer, and that's not fun. That lack of freedom dramatically changes how enjoyable replaying this game is, which being a 3D Mario game is one of its most important aspects. And though it didn't really happen to me in this playthrough, there have been multiple times while playing the game that I have just fallen through
this
the
level
floor.
here.
This game is janky in a very weird way where sometimes collisions just don't.
So I played that last level where the guy throws you. I played that on my game. I played this game on my gaming channel. If those of you who are not familiar with my gaming channel, is LSG Melly, same capitalized LSG, space capital M lowercase ELLY. That's my gaming channel, yo. It's in my bio if you want to find it. That level made me quit playing this game on my channel. The guy kept throwing me off of the roof over and over and over. You have to step in a specific spot for the dude to throw you properly. No. I was not aware and I quit.
Makes sense. And there have been multiple times in my life playing this game where I will lose a substantial amount of progress because the game decided to stop working.
And with all of that being said, this game still rocks.
Super Mario Sunshine is far from perfect, and I think out of all of the 3D Mario games, it's my least favorite. But there are so many cool things that make this really stand out. Whether it's the environments, the enemies, the story, or the voice acting, Super Mario Sunshine absolutely has its faults, but I can't say it's as bad as some people make it out to be.
Yeah, y'all. All right, that's the end. What you guys think? Do you like Mario Sunshine? Do you hate the game? Let me know why. State some good points in the comments down below. trying to get this channel rocking again. Your boy, like I said, took a 2-year hiatus, but we back now, reacting to things. Get also not just about this video. Give me some other things to react to as well that you want to see me react to. Give me some good creators that make good reacting content. Yeah. This is LSG. See you guys in my next video. Peace.